Hello, Monday afternoon, February 23rd, 2009. Um, Once again, many things happened today, but the Dow is down 250, so I'm going to talk about that. Um, First things right off the bat, so many things happened today. I think those that are new subscribers and recently finding out about Man of Truth, Brent Long, MBA, MOT, whatever you want to call me, um, might be to watch some of the things I shot in 2007. The Dow was, I think, 13,800. And I called for sell, sell, sell. And I had to go against Kramer, go against everybody, and people think it's negative thinking. But actually, facing reality, I think, is the purest path, the best way to joy and happiness, facing reality. Living in fantasy land is, I think that's insanity. But sometimes things are so dire that people just want to live in fantasy land. It's interesting to watch the CNBC commentators, and I've just recently discovered FBN. I noticed Liz Clayman's over there, and flick over to Bloomberg. I like a lot of their analyses. Watching all these different channels to watch how they're becoming very somber, especially CNBC. They were rah rah rah. Now it's a pretty somber situation there at CNBC. So Dow Down 250. The Obama speech, very interesting. I dig that Obama's very articulate, and some of the things that let me see that he's oh gosh, that we inherited a $1.3 trillion deficit. That's true. Um, these things have been visible for a long time. A lot of people are always judging me and trying to figure out where I'm at, but I didn't vote for Bush either time. I also didn't vote for Obama, and I didn't vote for McCain. Many of you know, if you watch like the Ron Paul videos, that of course Ron Paul stood for the Constitution, so Ron Paul was the man. But still, I knew it wouldn't make too much of a difference to vote because he wasn't the man to get in office. Um, anyway, so Obama talking about a $1.3 trillion, that's the annual deficit that he inherited. I thought that was great. He's got a bunch of people together. So people that want, you watch these guys on Fast Money, they want to, if Geithner would just give us a plan now. Well, government doesn't operate that fast, and that's not the program. So you guys on Fast Money, you're not going to get a plan that fast. Obviously, and I think it's great that Obama's getting input, but when you don't follow true principles, which are principles of freedom, principles laid down by the founding fathers, which Rick Santelli got very exercised about, rightly so, then the consequences must be suffered. They will be suffered. It's inevitable. Back to some current events here. I watched this guy that wrote the book Black Swan. That was pretty interesting. He said, we don't know who owns the banks. You need to do a little more research, but everybody has a little piece of the truth. I was trying to, thanks to YouTube, I was watching Glenn Beck last night about midnight, and Glenn Beck was talking about socialism and painting these really grim scenarios, talking about them happening in 2014. I thought, Glenn, I'm glad you're kind of starting to get up to speed, but Glenn Beck. And it's interesting because he has a Mormon background, as I do. It was interesting that, that a lot of the stuff was warned about within the Mormon church back with President Benson. It was a big deal back in the 60s and early 70s. And then if you looked at socialism versus capitalism and were on the side of capitalism, you kind of became ostracized in the Mormon church especially during the 80s and 90s. It was not unpopular. And I think it's still pretty unpopular if you look at who voted for Ron Paul or Mitt Romney here in the state of Utah. I think it was 80% Mitt Romney. And a little bit Ron Paul, but those would be the radical people that stand for the Constitution, as does Rick Santelli. And by the way, Rick, I was thinking about entitling this video a message to Rick Santelli, but there's so much stuff going on. Rick, I was talking to some friends that are very astute and financially adept and with the program, and if you have a tea party back in Boston, we will make the migration from Utah, okay? There's people here I'll be back there if travel is still possible and things like that. I would be back there in a second, Santelli. As again, you rule, as I said in some of my previous videos. Okay, just some other notes. Oh my gosh, AIG, 48 cents, losing. Oh my gosh, the numbers are so staggering. Billions and billions and billions and billions. Dow, the lowest close since May of 1997. GE at $8.80. Oh my gosh, it's interesting. One point I watched the Dow was at 7111. Dylan Radigan, he's interesting to watch him and this exchange between he and Maria. Oh yeah, he said angst, and I don't know where he got that pronunciation. Maria was laughing at it. He was very tense. She tried to make light of the moment, which was I appreciated. And he said, "We'll navigate through this." Well, Dylan, this hasn't happened before, and yeah, this will be navigated through, but probably in a way that you do not anticipate. It'll be very different. Never in the history of the world has one nation run up 53, 54, 55 trillion dollars worth of debt. And the PE ratios are coming down. A lot of this stuff is very technical, so I try to take a lot of this stuff and bring it down to the common level. But like Bank of America is just, oh gosh, worth a few $1 billion, and the government's already covered it for $45 billion. So these banks are insolvent, or maybe that's Citigroup. Too many notes, too much to do. Let's see. Boom. No, Citi, excuse me, Citi. 45 billion, market cap of 10 billion, 45 billion in debt by one analyst, market cap of 10 billion. So they're insolvent. What's the government going to do? They're trying to figure out what to do. Is the stock market going to continue to go down? Of course. To me, it was completely obvious when the Dow was almost at 14,000. That's why I was so sure I started posting my videos back in 2007, because it was over. And blaming who, trying to blame people, finding blame on this. Well, let's blame the homeowner. Let's blame this. Let's blame that. Well, back then I thought, this is insanity. There's no way I'd be a mortgage broker, because it was immoral. I could have made a ton of money doing it, and there was all kinds of bozos making a ton of money being mortgage brokers. And sure, the people didn't understand what they were doing. The mortgage brokers pretty much did, but they were after those commissions. They made a lot of money and spent it, and so it is wrong for those that were responsible and didn't buy houses. And I didn't buy a house on purpose, because how long is this insanity going to last? And people thought, well, you're insane, Brent. Well, I guess we know who's insane right now. And it's not, okay, this whole insanity, it's just people are not intelligent enough to realize what's going on, because you don't really get the straight shot from the media. And everybody, turns on TV and watches the media. So I'm grateful for YouTube, because you can select which media you want to watch. If Glenn Beck's 4 or 5 years behind the curve, at least he's saying some stuff out there. Interesting, he jumped over to Fox. The CNBC guys, Larry Kudlow knows, fellow Harvard MBA. Maybe I'll see him back in Cambridge at the reunion. But they try to be gung-ho, but this is not a gung-ho situation. It's de facto mathematical that EPS, earnings per share, will continue to go down. Price-earnings ratios will contract. Why? Because the earnings of these companies will continue to contract. Why? Because people aren't spending. Why? Because there was too much debt running up. Why? Because people got into debt, and some people understood and some didn't. So this bailing out people that didn't get into debt, and bailing out people that did get into debt, is immoral and wrong. And Rick Santelli called it. So just the latest thing, JP Morgan cuts its dividend 5 minutes ago, Maria. And I'll finish this video with, a lot of people like Brent watching Nora Rubini. Yeah, good info, but he's for the centralized bank thing. So you got these power brokers and guys that predicted this, which it was really pretty easy if you weren't worried about your popularity 2 or 3 years ago. If you were worried about your popularity, then you wouldn't dare say this stuff, because, various reasons you'd be unpopular. But Rubini is for centralizing the bank, so that's why I made that video a couple days ago, that the banks will be centralized, because that's going to happen for sure. And of course, there's the argument that they've already been nationalized with the massive infusions from the government and the expansion of the Federal Reserve balance sheet. So the bottom line, the Dow will continue to go down. We'll see it, go under 7,000, under 6,000. And Glenn Beck and those predictions, the Dow will be 3,000, 2014. Glenn, those predictions are happening right now. You get to see those, frankly, before Halloween. We'll see them before Halloween. I love those things. So, anyway, that's enough for now. The markets are going, gosh, the 4 big banks could lose $450 billion, some more stuff. That was from Rubini. I will get to a lot. I'm off to the post office to mail off those DVDs. And by the way, thanks for all you subscribers that ordered that DVD. I know you'll love it. It's very interesting. And I got to get off to the post office to mail. I bought a bunch of packages at Walmart. Got them printed off right here. And the MOD DVDs. Yep. It will be going out to you. Thanks for ordering. You really helped me out. God bless you guys. And gals. Ciao.